Have you ever walked into a conversation hoping to solve a problem and yet somehow left with a bigger one? In high stakes conversations, tension rarely explodes all at once. It builds through small reactions, missed signals, and emotional friction. Today, John and I are breaking down how to lower the temperature before the conversation catches fire.
Welcome to Own the Room, for people operating where the stakes are real.
Pitches, negotiations, leadership conversations that don't come with a second chance.
Here, you'll learn to control perception, read the room, and thrive in high-stakes communication. Now here's Jake Stahl, who's going to help you turn communication
into your unfair advantage.
Jake, I got some good news and some bad news.
Oh boy.
Let's start with the good news.
Okay.
I got a new client.
Yay! Good job, man. I'm proud of you.
Using all of the Strata framework and all that kind of thing, I got a new client, and that's the great news. The bad news is that a couple weeks into the client relationship, I'm not sure if it's actually going to work out. You see, there was some real tension on our last call as my client was talking to me about some expectations that they had for me that I didn't think were part of the deal that we made up front. So I'm producing some content for them. And they thought that part of the deal was that I would be also posting all of the content and monitoring all the content, kind of like, what we do here at Own the Room. But that wasn't part of that particular package. And I thought I made that clear up front, but the call got a little bit testy and there was some tension. And I think you've known me long enough to know that I'm not really one for tension. I don't love those awkward conversations, right?
Yeah. And John, the shame of it is by the time someone raises their voice or shuts down or gets defensive or maybe even walks away, tension's already been building for a while. It's rarely explosive. It's usually little things that happen. So were there little things that happened along the way, or did this come out of the blue?
There were red flags from day one, and I just ignored them because I thought to myself, well, I'm just going to push through because it's a new client and I really want to work with this person. So some of the red flags included, late night communication, kind of agitated sounding communication that's like, hey, I need you to do this right now. And meanwhile, it's midnight. It really just some things that I should have seen sooner, but unfortunately, it all kind of boiled over on our last call.
Yeah. And John, in a situation like this, many people, personal or business, make the same mistake. And that's they try to win back the conversation instead of just trying to stabilize it.
Stabilize it? How do you stabilize a conversation when it feels like it's out of control?
Yeah, so let's talk this through. When tension rises, most people become reactive. They defend or justify or interrupt or push harder or explain more. And every one of those behaviors actually increases pressure. So the conversation becomes less about solving the problem and more about protecting positions.
Okay, I see what you mean.
Let's go through how this escalates, and then I'm going to give you 5 ways to solve it. So, point number 1 in a tense situation is people stop listening when they feel threatened. So, I don't know about you, John, but when I'm attacked or judged or cornered or just blatantly misunderstood, my brain shifts into self-protection mode. And then when that happens, I'm so busy preparing responses that I'm not hearing what they're saying anymore.
Exactly. You're not truly listening. You're not truly present in that moment. I got that too, where all I'm thinking is, what am I going to say next? Not what are they actually saying?
Yeah. And when that happens, defensiveness creates more defensiveness. And what's weird about this is defensiveness is contagious. The moment one person in the conversation starts defending themselves, the other person almost always follows. So now you've shifted from solving the problem to having 2 people that are busy protecting themselves. You were protecting what you promised them, and they were protecting what they thought you promised.
I would say that was accurate. Yeah. And so defensiveness is contagious. I love that. I think we see that everywhere in these
Uh,
high pressure conversations in business, also in relationships, even
yeah,
on the road. Defensiveness is contagious.
yeah. It's so true. And then what happens after that is emotions increase. And here's another good rule of thumb is that when emotions rise, people become less flexible. So we get so busy defending ourselves that we want to be right, and our flexibility drops to almost zero. Our positions harden, our options shrink, and at that point, John, compromise becomes extremely difficult.
Yes. So emotions up, flexibility down. I've definitely seen that before, where the more emotional a discussion is, the less I'm willing to budge, even with my wife. The more emotional something gets, the more I'm like, well, I am 100% right and there's no room to compromise on this.
Right?
Because I usually am, right?
Yeah. Well, and listen, we're all like that. When we get defensive, we all shift into that gear. And then what happens, John, and this is the big problem, is the original problem gets lost. So
Mm.
eventually the conversation isn't about a deadline or a project or a decision that was made. Now it's about tone, intent, respect, and who's right. So the conversation drifts away from the issue that you're trying to solve, and the original problem gets lost and gives way to defensiveness.
The original problem gives way to defensiveness. And that means that we're not even on the same problem anymore. We've
Yeah,
created an entirely new problem on top of the original one because of the contagion of defensiveness.
correct. And the end result of all of this is trust gets damaged really quick. And you and I
Mm-hmm.
both know it takes weeks, months to build true trust. But a poorly managed conversation, like a dispute like this, where you both get defensive and tension escalates and flexibility drops, one poorly managed conversation damages that trust, especially in the case of leadership, sales, partnerships, or to your point, even marriages. So you could see
Mm.
how just the simple start of tension can boil all the way out into a damaging of trust.
So I've heard it described this way. This has always made a lot of sense to me. Trust is a bank account. It's not easy to build up a bank account. It takes time and effort and years of hard work and dedication to make deposits into that bank account and build up a nice balance. But
Yeah,
boy, all it takes is one luxury handbag or one big vacation to drain that bank account back down to zero.
very true. And the reason we're doing this podcast today is because tension can create so much damage, it's important to head it off at the pass. So, John, I put together 5 things people can start to do today when a situation becomes tense to try to keep all that from happening.
Excellent. Let's do it.
All right. So, let's start with number 1. Lower your volume before you attempt to lower theirs. So, what I mean is, most people try to calm the other person first. And we've all done this, right? We tell the other person, settle down, just relax. And our job is almost all consuming that we want to calm the other person. But this first suggestion is start with yourself.
Hmm.
Slow your pace, lower your volume, and reduce your intensity. Because what happens is people often mirror emotional states. And if you stay calm, you give them something stable to match. And John, we've talked about this so many times in other podcasts that calm is more contagious than anger, and that lowering your voice changes the emotional state of the room, and that silence creates that area for people to really start thinking about things. So, this is not new to the listeners of Own the Room. We talk about this all the time.
Think about the road too. This is one area where defensiveness is definitely contagious. You cut me off, but you were going too slow. Ah, screw you. And
Yeah.
fingers are flying and it's a whole mess. But I've tried this experiment and it's very humbling to try, but I've actually tried it recently where you get into one of those little tussles with the car next to you on the highway and you just wave, almost like an apologetic wave, and the
Yeah,
mood completely changes. It's like if you
for
take the lead,
sure.
the mood, if you're, oh, I'm sorry, maybe admit that you're in the wrong, whether you are or not, and
Yeah.
it completely changes everything. So it's like you have to model the behavior you want.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. So you're going to give them something to mirror. And most people, when they see calmness, they start to settle down. So that
Yes.
leads to number two, name the tension without feeding it. And in the book, Own the Room How to Communicate to Be Seen, Heard, and Respected, we talk about naming what we see all the time to try to get to what they're really thinking. So
Mhm.
this is what this would look like. If you're both getting tense, defensive, and frustrated, you could say something like, you know what, it feels like we're both getting frustrated. Or you may say something like, you know what, I think there's more tension here than either of us wants.
Mm.
So you acknowledge a reality, but you notice how we're not assigning blame.
Right.
And people tend to calm down when they feel seen and heard.
The third piece of that is respected, right? Communicating to be seen, heard, and respected. And you're also kind of,
Yes.
I mean, that's also just a shameless plug for the book Own the Room, right? But it's true, though. It feels like we're not respecting them when we're blaming them.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And that leads to number three, seek understanding before agreement. And we've all been there, right? It's like, listen, here's why you're wrong. Here's what you're not considering. Here's what you're saying is a problem. Instead, we want to reduce the pressure. So we may ask them, listen, please help me understand what concerns you most about this. So you're calling it out, you're reducing the pressure. We need to worry about agreement way later in the conversation. Our job right now is to stabilize and reduce the pressure. So just ask them, listen, I hear you. What's your biggest concern about?
And so that's actually listening. It's kind of turning it around. That's got to take some real humility, right?
Well, and here's the big thing, John, and I think you just said it in a different way, is that when you're trying to reduce tension, you need to leave your ego at the door.
Yeah.
Your main job needs to be stability of the conversation, not proving you're right, not advancing the sale, not looking for agreement. You just want to stabilize.
Stabilize the conversation. Oh, and boy, we got to put aside wanting to be right with wanting the
Yes,
actual outcome that we should want.
correct.
It's I always say that, when I'm in an argument with my wife, which, rarely happens. We have one of the best marriages in North America, but every once in a while it might happen. And what I think to myself, doesn't work every time, but what I think is, do I want to be right more than I want to have a decent evening? So my two
Yep.
choices are be right or ruin the rest of the night, maybe longer. Like,
Yeah.
what's really important here?
But again, to your point, that takes leaving the ego at the door.
Ooh, hard to do.
It is. That leads to number four, is separate the person from the problem. So we're often tempted to say, you're doing this. If it weren't for you, this wouldn't be happening. So we're basically saying, you're causing this.
That's such a personal attack when we feel like that we need to change. But it changes that from you're on a different team to we're actually on the same team fighting against a common problem.
John, the need to be right is overwhelming. As a matter of fact, there's a psychological scenario where people want to be right so bad that they will defend a wrong decision just so they're not wrong. So it can get that intense when people want to be right and want to be heard. So if you could separate the person from the problem and say, let's look at this together, you're doing just that.
Yeah. There's a Morgan Wallen song called If I'm the Problem. And
Oh, I know. I've heard that. It's a great
yeah,
song.
the idea is if I'm the problem, you must be the reason I'm the problem. So clearly that relationship didn't end happily,
Yeah.
but it goes to show that when you're on different teams, communication doesn't work. So unite to be on the same team, right?
Yeah. Yep. And then I think, John, personally for me, this is the hardest one at times. And that's slow the conversation down. You know, when emotions rise, many people speed up, and they do it because they want to get all their points in because they think they're going to show the other person they're right. And they'll interrupt because they get a thought in their head and they want to get it out into the ether before they forget it. So people will go from being slow and conversational to and just spewing out whatever they can. So in this scenario with tension, you need to do the opposite. Breathe, ask questions, because urgency just fuels the escalation, where some space often reduces it. And John, what I find myself doing is if I'm in a Zoom call where tension is getting high and I need to regroup and think this through and slow it down, I'll excuse myself. I'll just say, "Oh my God, can you give me a minute, please?" And then I'll get off the Zoom for like 2 minutes, breathe through it, go through these things in my head that I have to slow down and share the issue, not make it about them. Then when I come back on, I've regrouped and I can slow down and I can keep my tone lower. So many times it's just a little bit of space and then coming back with less emotion and slowing down.
I heard the other day someone suggest, like when you're in one of those situations, say, "Oh, hold on, the doorbell just rang. The FedEx guy is at the door.
Yeah.
I gotta
Yeah.
I gotta run and grab that." Now, whether they actually are or not, right? And that's some sort of excuse like that, or "Oh, hold on, I really got to use the bathroom." Whatever. That minute or so of presence can make a big difference. Actually, now that I think back, that was you who said that.
It
That's who I
was
heard
me
say
who
that.
said that.
How about that?
So I use the
On a
FedEx guy. I say, "Oh my God, my dog's going crazy. Can you give me a minute to calm them down?" So I will use some sort of excuse. And yes, it's a lie, but it serves a bigger purpose.
I'm trying to steal your content here on Own the Room, I guess,
That's
but,
all right. I'm pleased that
it's
my suggestion lodged in your memory. That's a win for me.
there you go.
All right, so let's go through the five one more time. Number one, lower your volume before you lower theirs. Start with yourself when it comes to being calm. Slow your pace, lower your volume, reduce your intensity, because people often mirror emotional states. Number two, name the tension without feeding it. Just come out and say it. You know what? It feels like we're both getting frustrated. Or, I think there's more tension here than either of us really wants. So it acknowledges reality, but doesn't assign blame. Number three, seek understanding before you worry about an agreement. So just come out and say to them, "I would love to understand what concerns you most about this." Instead of saying, "Listen, you're wrong." So understanding reduces pressure and agreement can come later. Remember, the job is to stabilize here before anything else happens. Number four, separate the person from the problem. We often want to say, "Listen, you're making this happen. If it weren't for you, this wouldn't be an issue." Instead, say things like, "Let's look at this issue together." Because when people stop feeling like they're the problem, they're much more willing to solve it. And last but not least, slow the conversation down. Because when emotions rise, people tend to speed up, and you want to do the opposite. Pause, breathe, ask questions, say the FedEx guy's at the door, your dog's out of control. Just take a break enough that you can just calm back down and slow things down. So, John, I think the main takeaways here are people try to win tense conversations, but the best communicators stabilize them first. Because the goal isn't to control the other person. The goal is to create conditions where productive conversation becomes possible again. Because once people stop feeling threatened, they usually become much easier to understand.
That's the bottom line, is change the way they're feeling about it, right? And you don't do that through force. You
Correct.
do that by actually examining yourself. So if those 5 things helped you, and you think that they might help someone else, share it with someone. Now, not in a passive aggressive, hey, you need to work on your tension diffusing skills. You could do
Yeah.
that, but I would recommend you share it with somebody who you know who could also get some value from that. The leader or high pressure communicator, whether that be a solopreneur or a leader in your life. And then if you don't have the book yet that details this and so much more, Own the Room: Communicating How to Be Seen, Heard, and Respected. You can find that wherever books are sold.
Thanks for checking out Own the Room with Jake Stahl. If you've gotten value from this episode, share it with the solopreneur in your life who wants to know how to communicate to be seen, heard, and respected. Review and rate the show wherever you check out podcasts, and grab your copy of Own the Room: How to Communicate to Be Seen, Heard, and Respected. We'll catch you next week on Own the Room.